Welcome to the Miners Coal Museum at the Evergreen Heritage Center, located in Mount Savage, Maryland. Mining began at our 130-acre property in 1902 and continued until 1947. 4 large mining companies had leases during those 45 years, including United Big Vein Coal, Mount Union Mining Company, and the Midland Mining Company. Mining had been a significant part of Maryland's economy, particularly in its western counties. Using both the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal and the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad to ship their product east, mining helped to encourage transportation development. In some cases, companies carved their own transportation routes, as in 1845 when the Mount Savage Coal and Iron Company completed the Mount Savage Railroad. Evergreen's property is located within the Georges Creek Basin and at the end of the Big Vein. The Big Vein is a 14-foot thick seam of bituminous coal discovered in the early 19th century. At Evergreen, the Big Vein seam was only 4 foot thick, but still a valued source of coal. In the early 1800s, some of the first commercial coal mines were beginning operation in several parts of the country. Coal provided more heat per pound than wood and occupied a smaller volume, making it a much more portable fuel. With the advent of the Industrial Revolution in the United States, coal consumption climbed, and in the late 1800s, the amount of energy produced from coal exceeded the amount produced from wood. The Big Vein was famous for its bituminous coal that was ideal for powering ocean steamers, riverboats, locomotives, steam mills, and machine shops. Industrialization, the use of coal to power machinery, and the use of coal in electric power generation supported a strong demand for coal. Coal is formed when dead plant matter decays into peat and is then converted into coal by heat and pressure of being buried over millions of years. Peat is the first stage in the formation of coal. Stage 2 is called lignite, which is formed when peat is subjected to an increased vertical pressure from the accumulating sediment. It is dark brown in color. Bituminous coal is the third stage. It is considered soft coal, and all plant fibers have disappeared in this form. Anthracite, or hard coal, is stage 4. Anthracite burns with a short flame and little smoke. Bituminous coal is what is found in Allegheny County. It is shiny and smooth in its appearance. Mining production peaked during World War I in Allegheny County with more than 450 mines in operation, producing over 5 million tons a year. Many mines used hand tools versus machines to mine the coal. This slide shows a comparison between the production output of each method. Picked produced almost 4 million tons versus the approximately 250,000 tons using a machine in 1918. But by the mid-1900s, the mining industry had begun to decline in Maryland. A decrease in reliance on coal as a fuel source caused many mines to become less profitable and close. We will now pause for you to discuss our first question. At the Evergreen Heritage Center, we have established a coal trail highlighting features from when mining was in its heyday, as well as native plants and animals found here on the property. The trail tour starts at the Miners' Coal Museum in the location of the former Miners' Mule Stable. The trail follows the former tramway, traveled first by the mules pulling the coal cars. Later, in 1916, an engine was used to transport the coal to an inclined plane, where it was lowered to the waiting railroad cars below. When completed, visitors will be able to peek inside a miner's boarding house, a mine opening, and a blacksmith's forge at Evergreen. The photo on this slide shows an example of what a typical boarding house might look like. The boarding house was built at Evergreen because more than 65 miners were employed here during the World War I era. The image seen on this slide features the Miners' Mule Stable, the blacksmith shop, the United Big Vein Coal Mine Opening Number 2, and the tramway. It was drawn by former miner David Norris. The blacksmith shop was in place by 1915, the Miners' Mule Stable was built in 1918, and the boarding house in 1921. Mules were used to pull carts through the mines and along the trail to the inclined plane since 1902 at Evergreen. Later, in 1918, when an electric engine was first employed along the tram road, the mules were used only in the mines. The former stable at Evergreen was built of clay-fired brick and was 1.5 stories high with a loft for hay. The blacksmith shop at Evergreen was one of the early features along the tramway. It included a forge and an anvil. Blacksmiths created and repaired tools for the mining operations. They sharpened pickaxes, drills, and other tools used in the mines, and they also made shoes for the mules. Evergreen Heritage Center had 5 mine openings that were worked by the family and major mine operators, such as the Mount Union Mining Company, United Big Vein Coal Company, and the Midland Mining Company. A mine opening in the side of a hill is sometimes called a country bank or a farmer mine for smaller operations, such as the one used by the family on the property. An adit or mine opening is a nearly horizontal passage from the surface by which a mine can be entered. Openings such as the one seen here have timber bracing, also called a collar, at the opening and for its roof support. Once the coal was loaded into the cars, they were taken to the end of the tramway to be loaded onto railroad cars. An inclined plane with a bull wheel was used to lower and raise the coal cars. Although the equipment is no longer in place at Evergreen, this picture shows how an inclined plane works. A wire cable wrapped around a bull wheel was used to pull cars up and down the inclined plane. This model can be seen at the Coal Heritage Museum in Kitzmiller. In Western Maryland, boys were allowed to work with their fathers or older brother. Their earnings were credited to the adult member of the team. This continued until the 1930s when child labor laws were passed. Boys typically had 3 types of jobs. The boys working inside the mines would drive and tend the mules, which pulled the coal cars. Or they worked as a trapper boy who opens and shuts the many doors in the dark tunnels. The doors were part of a ventilation system. The boy, working alone and in the dark, would sit and wait for a coal car and then open the door and close it once the car was through. Outside the mines, breaker boys would work to separate the slate and other debris from the coal. Gloves were not allowed to be worn so that boys could feel the difference between the slate and the coal. This caused the boys' hands to become calloused and regularly cut from handling sharp pieces. We will now pause for question number 2. Life for miners was dirty and hazardous. Many men would wash their necks and hands daily, but would only take a real bath at the end of the week. Mines were dangerous places with many hazards, such as injuries and disease. The failure of the water drainage system could flood a tunnel, or the ventilation system could fail to provide fresh air and cause a buildup of gases, such as methane, which could, and often did, catch fire and explode. Other dangers included mine wall collapses, vehicle collisions, as well as respiratory diseases and chronic health issues, such as black lung. This graphic shows the changes in wages miners were paid per ton of coal picked from 1880 to 1918 in the Georges Creek field. It ranges from 66 cents per ton in 1880 to $1.05 in 1918. A miner could pick approximately 6 tons of coal per day, which equates to $5.61 a day in 1917. In larger operations, deductions from miners' salary were made to pay the blacksmith who sharpened their picks and other tools. In addition, some miners had a deduction to pay the company doctor, and some also bought fuel from the company. Coal output decreased significantly after World War I. Added to a decrease in reliance on coal as a fuel source, many mines became less profitable and closed. Mining effectively ended in the 1940s at Evergreen. Thank you for visiting with us today. We hope you've enjoyed the journey, learned a bit about coal mining, what life was like for the miners, and the importance of the industry to Allegheny County and the country. We would also like to thank our sponsors who have made this presentation possible.